Welcome everyone to the Committee of the Whole meeting of Tuesday, June 2nd, 2026. Just a reminder, this is a Committee of the Whole meeting and no decisions will be made here today. There will only be recommendations that will go to our next regular council meeting on Tuesday, June 23rd, 2026 for consideration. A couple of reminders for today's meeting. Members of the media may sit in the upper balcony at the reserved media table. All other guests, please take a seat in the first floor gallery. If that is full, there is overflow seating on the second floor in the Victoria Room where you will be able to see and hear the meeting. We live stream the meeting on your YouTube channel and the recording is available after the meeting. This meeting is also broadcast on Broadcast Live on your TV. Cogeco subscribers channel 10, HD channel 700, and rebroadcasted on Wednesday at 9 a.m. and on Saturday at noon. Because meetings are accessible to the public in all these ways, video or audio recording by members of the public is not permitted in council chambers. This is to ensure that all attendees and those who come to make a deputation feel at ease. However, for those who are participating in the Accessibility Awareness Recognition Awards presentation, please feel free to take photos, commemorate the recognition during that portion of our agenda. Thank you for your cooperation. On June 21st, we will recognize National Indigenous Peoples Day. We're going to read the land acknowledgement today because our council meeting for this month is not till the 23rd of June, and it would be after that day. This is a day to celebrate the rich cultures, traditions, and historic contributions of Indigenous peoples across Canada, traditionally celebrated during the summer solstice. It is a time to reflect on our relationship with the natural world and acknowledge the deep connections we have to the earth and our environment. We can learn much from the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities in their respect and stewardship of our lands and waters. One way for us to honor National Indigenous Peoples Day is to take the time to learn about how they continue to protect and care for our natural resources and to appreciate their significant contributions to our area locally as well as across Canada. In honor of this day, I will read our land acknowledgement. The City of Kawartha Lakes respectfully acknowledges that we are situated on the Mississauga lands and the traditional territory covered by the Williams Treaties. We are grateful for the opportunity to work here, and we thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. We recognize and deeply appreciate their historic connection to this place. We also recognize the contributions of Métis and other Indigenous people in shaping and strengthening this community. At this juncture, I'm looking for an adoption of the agenda. Can I have a motion? Deputy Mayor Richardson, Councillor Warren, all in favor? And that's passed. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest on anything on today's agenda? Seeing none, should any arise during the course of the meeting, advise the chair and we'll deal with it accordingly. I have another announcement. June is Pride Month, a time for coming together and appreciating diversity, appreciating the freedom to be oneself, and appreciating the strength that comes from welcoming all voices of our community. When people are free to be themselves, we all benefit, and we set a needed example of inclusivity and acceptance. And from this, our society will only grow and become stronger as we build on a foundation of equality and respect for others. Let this Pride Month remind us all that kindness and having an open mind and open hearts is the best path toward a more inclusive and empowered community. Councillor Ashmore, I believe you have an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to let the public know that Lindsay will be the host of the OFSA Girls AAA Rugby Championship, and OFSA stands for Ontario Federation of School Athletic Associations. It's going to be taking place from June 4th to the 6th. It brings the top 16 high school girls teams in Ontario together, with matches hosted at I. Weldon Secondary School and the Lindsay Rugby Football Club, Vince Jones Road, just east of Lindsay. So this is a tournament that'll be expecting close to 2,000 people, with players, families, friends, spectators. So if you're in the watch the game at I. Weldon Secondary School or out at the Lindsay Rugby Football Club, certainly a world-renowned facility out there. And next Saturday will be the championship game. So just thought I'd let people know, and there are going to be a lot of people in Lindsay area attending that event, and everyone's welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to presentations. First one is Accessibility Awareness Recognition Awards, and we'll ask Christine Briggs, the People Partner for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Accessibility. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. And through you to Council, welcome to the 18th Annual Accessibility Awards. We are thrilled to be here today on National Accessibility Week. Whoa. Here we go. It's a time where communities across Canada come together to celebrate the individuals that are making a difference in their community. And we're going to do that here today. We're going to celebrate individuals, businesses, and youth who are making Kawartha Lakes a better, more accessible place. Before we dive into the awards ceremony, I am going to turn the mic over to the Kawartha Lakes Accessibility Advisory Chair, Elizabeth Peters, to say a few words.
Thank you. Today we have the opportunity to recognize a new group of accessibility awards. We will be presenting the inaugural Catherine Peters Memorial Award for Youth. Catherine was a firm defender of accessibility rights. She was a fierce self-advocate, and she was also an advocate for others. She spoke to groups upwards of 1,500 people to tell them why it was important that accessibility really did matter. Today we are honored to have 3 youth receiving the award, and we hear so much negativity about the youth of our community. And after you've heard of these 3 youth, you're going to have a completely different idea, because they are amazing. So without further ado, Mr. Mayor and Councillor and guests, I'd like to get on with the awards. Thank you.
So Councillor MacDonald and I will join you down there. Councillor MacDonald is the council representative on the Accessibility Committee.
We'll start our presentation this afternoon recognizing outstanding contributions by an individual. Our first winner is Tyler Lorenz. Tyler is being recognized for his active involvement and contributions to the Omimi Legion and the broader community. Living with a disability, he volunteers for many roles, including serving as a member of the Colour Party, assisting with maintaining wreaths at the cenotaph, and supporting community events, demonstrating that everybody has valuable contributions to make. Congratulations, Tyler. Next, we recognize John Thurston. John is being recognized for his leadership and advocacy in advancing accessibility within the community. A Kawartha Lakes resident and Canadian Paralympic gold medalist, he has played a key role in championing accessibility improvements at 2 local curling clubs, helping ensure the facilities are more inclusive for athletes and community members of all abilities. John is unable to attend this afternoon, but please join me in congratulating him on this award. Next, we move on to outstanding contributions by a business. Today, we recognize a group of organizations: Mackey's Funeral Home, Jardines Funeral Home, Stoddart's Funeral Home, and Hendren's Funeral Home. These businesses are being recognized for their efforts to improve accessibility for residents with disabilities through the implementation of features such as ramps, accessible washrooms, sound systems, and large print programs and hymn books to ensure their spaces are inclusive and accessible during important life events. Congratulations. Next, we move on to recognize an outstanding new build or modification. The winner of this award is Thrill, the Therapeutic Horsemanship and Riding in Lindsay. Thrill is being recognized for its commitment to improving accessibility through inclusive therapeutic riding programs and facility enhancements. The organization has developed a fully accessible tack room and installed automatic door operators to support independence and participation for individuals with physical, intellectual, and emotional challenges, ensuring participants of all abilities can fully engage in the equine experience. Congratulations. Next, we recognize Downeyville Hall, Knights of Columbus Hall. Downeyville Hall is being recognized for the accessibility improvements made through a multi-phase renovation project. The upgrades include automatic doors, accessible washrooms, and a fully accessible lower hall, ensuring the historic community hub can continue to host events and activities in an inclusive and accessible environment for all residents. Congratulations. Next, we'll recognize outstanding contributions by a community group. Our first winner is St. Luke's Catholic Church Parish. St. Luke's Parish is being recognized for its leadership in improving accessibility at the Downeyville Hall. Through a multi-year fundraising effort and collaboration with the Hall Restoration Committee, the parish helped implement accessibility features that ensure the hall is more inclusive and accessible for residents with disabilities. Congratulations. Next, we recognize Emmanuel Church, Fenland Falls. Emmanuel Church is being recognized for its efforts to improve accessibility within its facility and community programs. The congregation has installed features such as a chairlift, accessible washroom, ramp, and sound system to support inclusion, while also offering community activities including a free Friday soup luncheon, games days, and seniors exercise classes. Congratulations. Our next award recognizes outstanding contributions by a city employee or team. And our winner is the Customer Experience Division. The Customer Experience Division is being recognized for its commitment to providing accessible municipal services to residents, businesses, and visitors. As the primary point of contact through the city's call center and municipal service centers, the team works to remove barriers by assisting residents with diverse needs, providing clear guidance, and ensuring services can be accessed in person with digital options are not suitable. Through thousands of interactions each year, the division helps residents navigate municipal programs and services with dignity, independence, and equal opportunity, creating a more inclusive and accessible experience for our community. Congratulations.
Tim, do you think we can do one with, customer experience, please stand.
And moving on to our Catherine Peters Memorial Youth Accessibility Award winners. Our first winner is Ariana Van Biersen Tripp. Ariana is being recognized for promoting inclusion for a fellow student with a hearing impairment. She helped to establish an ASL club and actively uses sign language to communicate with and support the student, helping to foster connection and inclusion both at school and during daily bus rides. Congratulations. Our next winner is Aiden Timmons. Aiden is being recognized for his leadership in promoting inclusion and accessibility among his peers. He actively supports classmates with diverse abilities, including students who are blind, have low vision, or are autistic, and advocates for the accommodation needs to ensure everybody feels welcome, supported, and able to fully participate in the classroom. Congratulations, Aiden. And our final winner in this category is Rose Luciak. Rose is being recognized for her leadership and advocacy for youth mental health and community inclusion through her involvement with the Boys and Girls Club Youth Council. In this role, she helps connect young people with community resources and promotes a broader understanding of accessibility by highlighting the importance of removing social and mental barriers that prevent youth from fully participating in community life. Rose is unable to be here today, but she was presented her award at St. Dominic's Catholic Elementary School yesterday by our chair, Catherine Peters. Elizabeth, sorry. And our final award of today is the Barbara MacArthur Memorial Award of Distinction. And today's winner goes to Joanne Burden. Joanne is being recognized for her lifetime of achievement, leadership, and advocacy in sports and accessibility. Considered one of Canada's top Paralympic athletes of the 1980s and 1990s, she has earned 10 Paralympic medals and set several world records that stood for more than a decade. Her extraordinary accomplishments have been recognized through inductions into numerous halls of fame, including the Canadian Paralympic Committee Hall of Fame, Canadian Disability Hall of Fame, Canadian Cerebral Palsy Sports Association Hall of Fame, the University of Toronto Sports Hall of Fame, and the Terry Fox Hall of Fame. In addition to her athletic achievements, Joanne has made lasting contributions to her community and to improving the lives of others. She is a recipient of both the Queen's Silver Jubilee Medal and the Golden Jubilee Medal, and was honored with the King Clancy Award from the Canadian Foundation for Physically Disabled Persons for her work in supporting and uplifting others. A respected professional, she was also named Pharmacist of the Year and was the first Paralympic athlete nominated for Canadian Female Athlete of the Year honors. Continuing to inspire through sport, Joanne began in wheelchair curling in 2019 and most recently competed at the Ontario Games in Coldwater. Her dedication, leadership, and commitment to inclusion exemplified the spirit of Barbara MacArthur Memorial Award of Distinction. Congratulations, Joanne.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for that. And folks, you're welcome to stick around for the council meeting if you like, but we'll give you a couple of minutes if you choose to go and enjoy the lovely day out there. Presentation by Elizabeth Peters and by Christina Briggs regarding the Accessibility Awareness Recognition Award, and that it be brought forward to council for consideration at the next regular council meeting. Councillor McDonald and Ashmore, all in favor? And that's passed. Moving on to deputations. Item 6.1 on the agenda is a request for the implementation of an integrated aquatic biomass remediation framework. Mr. Frank Vitro. Mr. Vitro, you have 5 minutes. Whenever you're ready, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Frank Vetro, and it's a privilege and honor to stand here before you today on behalf of our United Waterfront community across the Kawartha Lakes. I'm incredibly grateful for this opportunity to share a climate initiative for the future of our regional waterways. I've forwarded this complete operational plan directly to your offices, and you should or your staff require any technical or explanations, I'd be available to answer any of those. I'm here today to speak on behalf of our community of local residents, farmers, and businesses who are deeply concerned about the ecological and economic future of our waterways. Our lakes are the absolute economic backbone of this region, and because our community relies so heavily on their health, this is a very real and understandable frustration regarding the ongoing stagnation of our water quality. This common sense course of action is built directly upon a highly respected scientific foundation. I want to explicitly highlight and praise the work of Brett and his monitoring team at Kawartha Conservation this year, as their efforts incredibly important to our community. The biological data they are collecting is exceptionally high quality, and it indicates problems with our water quality. It's because of these precise data-rich reports that I've been able to successfully advance atmospheric research in our region. Their comprehensive documents clearly establish factual reality of our watershed, showing that overall regional surface water quality has plateaued at a C grade and some at a D grade. Their findings pinpoint the exact drivers this challenge highlights. The combined impacts of urban storm runoff from our streets, industrial road salts, municipal waste treatment bypass, and heavy agricultural runoff. These reports provide an essential data to guide us in our actions, and while long-term preventative measures such as upgrading septics, managing urban stormwater, and working with agricultural partners are vital for preventing future damage. They do not address the biomass currently in our waters, though. Our community looks forward to seeing active, visible remediation taking place alongside this valuable ongoing research. Within this framework, the vital role of the Conservation Authority continues to focus on ensuring oversight and accountability, keeping all physical activities aligned with strict conservation, Parks Canada, and Trent Waterway standards. While voluntary home grant programs are designed with the best intentions to engage the community, relying on sporadic individual participation is less effective for a large-scale watershed management. As our residents are not equipped for the complex marine remediation, achieving a true ecological turnaround across our entire lake system requires a centralized, coordinated municipal operational model to ensure a meaningful environmental impact. Through constructive dialogue and collaboration with Kawartha Lakes Conservations, I've developed a meaningful suggestion to address this effectively using a contractor-driven model. Based on these insights, the initial suggestion involves procuring transferable regional fleet assets and a professional crew to physically extract biomass before it decays. We look at council to support this initiative because it aligns local conservation expertise with an operational framework that delivers tangible results. The municipality's year-end treasury statements indicate that there are financial resources available that could support this type of initiative, showing $30 million in allocated reserves alongside an additional $20 million in obligatory reserves, which include unspent Canada Community Building and Environmental Disaster Funds. As a practical suggestion, this first-year pilot could potentially be funded by utilizing a small allocation from these pre-existing safety nets. Council might consider drawing from these currently unspent climate action and environmental action funding pools as an efficient way to jumpstart this project in the near future. The benefits of this project are extensive. As we're cleaning our lakes, while actively supporting climate action. Carbon dioxide is not the only driver of climate change. Unlike complex methods that introduce synthetic additives into the agricultural food chain to reduce livestock methane, mechanical harvesting naturally intercepts methane cycle at the source by physically extracting the biomass before it decays. This is vital because methane is an aggressive short-term climate driver, 84 to 86 times more potent than carbon dioxide over a critical 20-year period. And it directly contributes to the intense localized heat affecting our waterways today. Once harvested, this organic material creates a highly efficient natural climate solution. Rather than allowing the plant matter to rot in the lakes and release greenhouse gases, providing it to local agricultural partners as premium 100% organic fertilizers builds up soil organic carbon. Agricultural and environmental studies show that incorporating this composted aquatic biomass significantly improves soil structure and water retention while boosting crop yields by over 15%.
Can I get you to wrap up, please?
Yes, I guess I can. I have one more paragraph, sir. Okay, Okay, this framework highlights a balanced approach to the environment care. By piloting this program, we can support the growth of forward-thinking technologies, helping to ensure our global green transitions are achieved with complete local ecological care. Implementing this model locally creates a wonderful template that other communities can easily adapt to for meaningful, widespread impact. I'm committed to working alongside city staff through this pilot, sharing environmental milestones, collaborating, addressing any technical details to ensure the project succeeds safely. Let us choose a path of active partnership, build upon Brett's excellent conservation findings, and move forward with this Operation Pilot program. Thank you.
Thank you. If you'd stay there for a few minutes in case there are any questions. I have a motion to receive. Councillor Warren, Councillor Perry. All in favor? That's received. Any questions for the deputant? Councillor Warren.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your deputation. Just wondering, kind of the first steps to something like this would be to get a permit from Trent Severn. So have you reached out to Parks Canada, Trent Severn, to get a permit for mechanical harvesting?
Well, I haven't been approved for the program yet, so I haven't done that, but I'm capable of doing it, and I have the supporting documents that could
yeah,
push
that's the
the
first
permitting
step.
first, yeah.
That would be the first step.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct.
Councillor Joyce.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I read through the documents you sent. Where does the province stand on this? Have you?
Sorry?
The province. Where do they stand on this?
I haven't really looked at it from the province standpoint. My fight today, it's not really a fight. It's actually want to partner with you guys. My suggestion, the provincial government is another layer. It's another layer of environmental programs that they run. Parks Canada and Trent Waterway Systems are federally. So the province really mandates it back down to the municipal level. So I've gotten nowhere with the province on this. So I'm asking City Council, maybe we could push this forward to the province and maybe mandate it too.
Well, It gets complicated because
Definitely.
the waterway is owned by the federal government, Trent Severn.
Mm-hmm.
The lake bed is owned by the province. And the only thing we own is from the high water mark.
Correct. Yes.
So you must deal with all three levels of government, and it becomes very complicated. And in any event, just so you know.
Yeah, definitely I do know. I've spoken to the Trent Waterway Systems, Park Canada, and they're definitely helpful when it comes to information and what requirements are. And definitely I would be available to consult all the way through it and provide a strong case.
Thank you. Councillor Ashmore.
Thank you, through you too, Mr. Vitro. Thanks for your presentation. Yes, this issue's been ongoing, especially, in my experience with folks over in Pigeon Lake. But this past month and a half, we've had huge, called bulrush islands, break apart and come into the shoreline, specifically in Wispy Shores and Lakeview Estates, and even coming up as north as Victoria Place, which is very rare. But people are desperately trying to find a way to move these islands, and they're huge and they weigh a lot and they have to scramble to get them out of the way. But to deal with this material, like years ago we talked about putting it into the landfill and on concrete and letting it decompose, or maybe bringing it to the energy center in Clarington, or if we have a small scale center here at Lindsay Ops landfill. But certainly biomass, like it could be a fuel of the future, and certainly good for organic activity. But yeah, there's always a major problem with biomass and vegetation in the lakes. But thanks for your presentation.
Was there a question in there?
No, just we'll have can there be like a?
Thank you.
At the next meeting, I'll make a motion.
So we've had a motion and we've received it. Thank you very much for coming today, and thank you for your presentation. And this will be forwarded to the council meeting on the 23rd of June.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Have a great day, guys.
Moving on to correspondence, we have from Mr. Amir Dawood, Ashmere Developments, a piece of correspondence for participation in the Federal Provincial Development Charge Reduction Initiative. And we'll be hearing a lot more about that in the future, but right now I need a motion to receive and forward to the next regular council meeting. Councillor Doble and Councillor McDonald, all in favor? And that's passed. Moving into presentations. We have our own Steve Lucas and Sergeant Ryan Weir, City of Kawartha Lakes OPP team leader, and this is on Project Lifesaver presentation.
Chief Johnson sends her regrets. She couldn't make it today, so I'm stepping in.
Yes,
Yep.
we understand.
Yep, great.
We'll just wait. I think you're going to be joined by a couple of people here, and there are some chairs right behind you that
So it's great to see those awards. I live in the GTA. If you don't know, that's the Greater Downeville area. So all that St. Luke's Church stuff was great to see. And I do see the work that those folks put into that, and it's impressive what they did, as long as the other award winners. But thanks to the mayor, councillors, staff, and attendees for giving us this opportunity to present Project Lifesaver. I'll give you kind of a quick introduction, and then these two folks are going to take over and give the presentation. But Sergeant Ryan Weir of the City of Kawartha Lakes OPP Detachment approached our department in April of 2025 with this project, and Chief Johnson was totally on board with it, as it supports our community care, or community paramedics program, supporting vulnerable people to stay in their homes safely. So there's been a lot of work being done over the last year, and of course with any initiative there's other organizations and leaders within that organization to support this program. There is the Alzheimer's Society of Peterborough, Kawartha Lakes, Northumberland, and Halliburton. Sarah Cook and then Jen Johnstone here. She will be speaking as well. And then we have key partners. I think I see Brendan Johnson from the Kawartha Lakes Police Service here. That's been also a vital part of this initiative. And in our own department, Ashley Weeks is hiding here as our executive assistant, and she has a pretty good background in procurement and was able to get the equipment that we require to get this rolling. Chief Johnson obviously gave me some speaking notes, and this is going off script, but she should be recognized as well as being part of this great team that's put this together. So I'll introduce these guys with their credentials here to make sure I get it right. So first to speak will be Sergeant Ryan Weir, City of Kawartha Lakes OPP. He's a team leader as well as part of the emergency response team. And then Jen Johnstone, Executive Director of the Alzheimer's Society of Peterborough, Kawartha Lakes, Northumberland, Halliburton. Good, Ryan?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, council members, directors. I'll get right into it because I know we're short on time. Project Lifesaver is a nonprofit organization based out of the United States. It's been used here in Ontario since about 2005 in several other policing jurisdictions and OPP detachments. Quite simply, let's open up the magic tricks. This project uses radio frequency technology for tracking wandering people at risk. It is an older, simplistic technology as opposed to some of the new GPS and cellular-based technologies for tracking that is out there on the market. I feel that this radio frequency tracking technology is very inexpensive in comparison and doesn't have the same struggles with heavy tree canopy and working indoors. This device simply uses a transmitter, an FM transmitter beacon that's worn like a watch on program participants. It is to a specific frequency in the 216 megahertz range, which is not commonly used. And a receiver, basically a radio receiver, oversimplified, that has a directional antenna on it, and it's used to easily find these people. How is the, right now we've purchased 2 full receiver kits. So one full kit contains the receiver itself, a directional antenna, a multi-directional antenna, carrying case, etc. And one full kit is housed at the Kawartha Lakes Police Service. The other full kit is housed at the OPP detachment in City Kawartha Lakes. We have one Project Lifesaver instructor. Oh, that's okay. I'll just burn through it. Thank you. We have one instructor through Project Lifesaver at the Kawartha Lakes detachment, Constable Krista Tabor. She's been able to train a total of 14 members in between both police services. Now, the way this system works is that both are identical. Both can be used in conjunction or on their own. Police services can help each other, which is a nice benefit for the program. How is it deployed? So a simplistic view is if somebody is reported missing by a family or caregiver, they're flagged on our local records management system as a program participant, including their specific frequency for their beacon. The trained operator will go get the equipment, bring it back to the point last seen or last known point, turn it on and tune it to the exact frequency of the beacon we're looking for. Each beacon contains a small battery, and it emits 1 pulse per second on this frequency. That's not an audible tone unless you have a receiver. So if they turn on the equipment and they hear that pinging once per second, it means the missing person is within approximately 1 to 1.5 kilometers. At that, they activate the directional antenna, turn in a small circle, nice slow circle, and wherever the signal is the strongest, so the loudest beep, the strongest signal, that's where the missing person is. They simply walk towards them and find them safely. If the person turns on the equipment and that chirp once per second is not heard, it means they're outside of that radius. At that time, the operator simply puts a multi-directional antenna on the roof and starts to drive slowly in a big circumference, bigger and bigger circles until they hear that chirp. That's the direction of the missing person. They put the directional antenna on again, do the circle, and find the person. This does not negate the fact for ground searches if they can work in partnership with each other. But the success rate boasted by Project Lifesaver, it's normally within a 30-minute time frame that somebody's from the time they're reported to the time they're located. It's crazy impressive. So it's great to bring people home, but when you look at a financial standpoint on how expensive searches are, it's another added layer. Operating costs. So right now, the total cost was just over $18,000, and that is, once again, very inexpensive for the whole system. That included 2 full receiver kits and another 10 transmitters that are going to be used for Project Lifesaver participants. Each kit is $399 American. It's quite pricey, but it includes the technology, replacement bands, replacement batteries, and a radio frequency, basically a daily checker to ensure that it's working properly. There's no annual fees or no subscriptions for this device. It's a one-time purchase, and all of the training hours, both initial training and then subsequent requalifications, are all absorbed by the local police services. Wanted to say that this was fully endorsed by Chief Robertson and Inspector Flindle from the Kawartha Lakes Detachment. They're completely on board. And once again, just to piggyback what you said, Chief Johnson, Sarah Johnson, has been an absolute powerhouse with this. As soon as we approached her, she saw the benefit and has been pushing it along for funding, and we couldn't be here without her. I'll turn the floor over. Thanks.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me, Mr. Mayor, Council. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm just going to discuss sort of how do people access the Project Lifesaver program, because clearly that's a very important element. First and foremost, the participant needs to be a resident here in the city of Kawartha Lakes, and they need to have a condition that may cause the individual to become lost. They may exit seek, or they may, sometimes they do know precisely where they are, except their caregivers are not able to find them, and they are not safe out in the community. So individuals may have, a heavy coat on in 40-degree weather, or flip-flops on in -35. Conditions that generally qualify for Project Lifesaver include all forms of dementia, including Alzheimer's disease. It also includes autism spectrum disorder, as as well as brain injury and other intellectual disabilities as well may also be individuals that may qualify for the program. And the other element that is required is that they need to have a caregiver or a support person that can help them maintain the technology. So that individual needs to be able to support daily battery checks, as well as monthly battery changes, because of course the program only works if the technology is regularly maintained. And next slide. So how do folks access Project Lifesaver? So as the hosting organization at the Alzheimer's Society of Peterborough, Kawartha Lakes, Northumberland, and Haliburton, I'll test you all on the name later if you'd like. But all it is a quick phone call to our office. Our team will answer that phone call and direct the individual to our staff member that is supporting the program predominantly. From there, they're going to speak to the individual. They're going to do a suitability conversation, talk to them about what the program requirements are, and determine their eligibility from there. If they are eligible, we're going to enroll them in the program. From there, our team member is going to assign them one of the transmitters, and the corresponding frequency and client information that goes along with that transmitter will then be provided to the appropriate police service for entry into their database. And that is, in general, Project Lifesaver in a nutshell, and we welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you. We do have some questions, but I just want to say what a great program and how well required it is in this day and age. So congratulations to you all for taking the efforts and seeing this through. Deputy Mayor Richardson.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. What an excellent example of community collaboration. So thanks for that. What do you think, how many residents do you think will actually expected to enroll maybe in the first year?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. We're not entirely sure. So we have 10 wristbands, and in other Alzheimer's societies across the province are also hosts of this program. For instance, in the Belleville Hastings Society, they currently have about 6 participants. It really does depend on, individuals where they will be identified primarily. I think there's going to be very few individuals that will sort of cold call the program, for instance. Generally speaking, folks that may need the support through Project Lifesaver or are particularly at risk of becoming lost are known to either community paramedics, OPP, police services, organizations like ours as well, and we'll get them connected to the program. So we don't anticipate a high number initially, but that could, of course, grow. And I do want to note as well, in particular with dementia, from 2021 to 2030, there's a 65% increase in the number of people living with dementia, and that is only going to increase further to 2050. So having this infrastructure developed now, working out the kinks of a new program at this juncture is really well timed.
Great, thank you. And so the $399, is that to the family's expense for the band originally?
So the first 10 families, it's covered. Our organization is going to be, and of course, it's not just us, everyone that's working on the project is really invested in the success. We're looking at all sort of funding avenues and opportunities to be able to purchase more of the transmitters, because we know that for a lot of residents, that can be cost prohibitive. That being said, as Sergeant Weir noted, it is a one-time fee, which is really excellent. And the reason I say that is that other systems that do exist out there, it's about the same fee to be able to get, for instance, a wristband that doesn't have technology, it just identifies an individual when they're missing, and then that also comes with subscription fees of about $150 a year on top of that. So as much as the initial investment is costly, over time it still is the most cost-effective option.
Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, thank you, through you. What a great initiative. Thank you very much for doing that today. Just to clarify, so for the 10 people, it's $399 for the watch. It's like a watch. And is it charged just like a watch if you have one of these other watches? Is that the same way it works?
Through Mayor to Councillor. Actually, no. So what's really interesting about this is it's very old technology, which is why it's so effective. And so, right, there's very little to go wrong in the Project Lifesaver technology. And so actually this is why the daily battery checks are so important. It's not charged through a cord. It is charged, thank you. It is charged through these batteries, which of course we will be purchasing in bulk. And so that's why we have daily battery checks and monthly. We're going to have monthly battery clinics to replace those batteries for families. And it is one of the requisites of the program. So if someone isn't sort of conducting those checks or isn't showing up to those batteries, then they're no longer eligible for the program because otherwise, a lot of resources would get lost trying to identify and find someone that, we're obviously not able to locate.
Another question, could it be used for children? Because we have, sometimes in our schools, we have runners that take off and so on. Can it be used for children too and so on?
So as long as they qualify for the program, so again, they sort of meet those conditions, that set of conditions that would require them to be able to be appropriate for the program, then yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Councillor Warren.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and this is just on the band itself. How is it adhered? How do they make sure that it can't be taken off?
Through you, Mr. Mayor to Councillor, it's a great question, and certainly, particularly when we're handling dementia or perhaps children, that can be certainly an issue. The bands are quite well secured. Oh, it's like the tickle trunk. Thank you. So you can see here that the bands, they're sort of permanently attached on the individual, so they're not easily able to be removed. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming today, and thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
And I really think it's a great program, and I wish you every success. Thank you. Can I have a motion to receive the presentation? Councillor Yeo and Councillor Deputy Mayor Richardson. All in favor? And that's passed, then it's going to be forwarded to the next council meeting. Thank you all for coming today. There's also a report that goes with this, Project Lifesaver, and I need a motion to receive that and to bring it forward to the next regular council meeting. Councillor Ashmore and Councillor Warren, all in favor? And that's passed. Councillor Yeo, did I miss you on a question? Oh, okay. I thought I saw your name, and then when I looked, there was nothing there. It's because you're so shy and retiring. Yeah. Next up, we're going to have the 2026-2035 long-term financial plan. Director Sarah Bokaboom, and I believe our own Dr. Found is also going to assist. So whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You're quite right. Manager Found is going to present half of the presentation, and I'll do the opening operating component. So we're here today to update what you last saw in August 2025 in terms of the long-term financial plan. We've been working on some themes, improving our operating impacts as a result of capital decisions. We've been finite the analysis on special projects and setting parameters on those. It is our goal to update this plan annually in advance of the budget process to set the parameters and ensure that we're on track with council. This also ensures that the plan remains current, And this maintains a focus on the city's longer-term financial component and sustainability in addition to the annual budget. We will also be making decisions annually that monitors the growth needs and requirements on infrastructure compared to the actual growth incurred. And the topics being covered are as follows. In summary, this forecast now has revised some of the current service levels, and it has been updated as a result of decisions made during the 2026 budget process. We are recommending that budget increases be maintained at 6% per annum. This consists of 4% for the operating and the continuance of the council-approved 2% dedicated capital levy. Water and wastewater rates will be maintained at the 4% for the 26 to 29 period and 3% thereafter. That is per the approved 2025 water rate study that this council approved late 2025. We recognize both council and staff are committed to a balanced approach considering ratepayer affordability within the annual budget compilations. And so any particular budget year may have additional budget pressures or savings, and council always has the opportunity in year to amend any of this long-term plan. Some major summation from the last long-term plan a year ago is, again, to keep within that 4%, reviewing some of the service level decisions in order to achieve savings. Even at the 4%, I do want to note that we will struggle to balance the 27 budget with a 4% parameter. So just to be aware when we come forward over the summer and fall, we will have to make some decisions on that budget. We do want to keep parameters at the highest level on this long-term plan, though, and again, work then in year as we need to balance and make decisions. This long-term plan sets aside money to continue replacing money back into the reserves. As you're aware, we withdrew a significant amount to balance the 25-year deficit, so we're looking to replace and instantiate those reserves again. This council has also seen extreme success in the capital program and the investments therein during the past 5 years, and the improvements to the state of good repair and reduction on debt for your state of good repair. In other words, the long-term plan is working well, and your asset management plan is moving towards sustainability on the state of good repair assets. So what has changed from last year's plan? Some minor modifications going from 500 to 300 units per annum, only for the immediate portion of this long-term plan based on the cessation of some of the growth we'd been anticipating. Lowering the supplemental and the tax-based growth from 3% to 2%, again, just for the immediate term until we get back on track with the growth. We have reduced some of the new position share or the benchmarking we were using. If you recall, in years past, we referred to 1% of the tax levy being dedicated for new positions to address and ready for growth. But we've taken a pause for 3 years, and we have a strategy from 27 to 29 to slow that down somewhat until we recognize the growth is upon us again. Some of the major water wastewater capital projects that were in the previous long-term plan have been pushed out, and that was based on great decision-making amongst staff, knowing that the growth wasn't upon us yet, and so we've delayed some of those major upgrades to align with the populace intake. We're recommending that we keep an eye on the special projects needs. This is a new category, circa about 2022. These are for non-capital or non-tangible capital assets, and yet they're not operating, so we're trying to get a handle on the parameters needed for that category. We're recommending to Council at the June 23rd meeting that we increase the debt servicing ratio from 10% to 12.5%. This will allow for more flexibility in year should some of the tenders come in over budget. You will sometimes see that we ask for additional debenturing in order to allow for that overage to occur. It'll also allow us some flexibility and accommodate what you're going to see soon in the 10-year deeply affordable housing category. We want to be able to give ourselves some room to respond, move some of those projects forward in the shorter term of this long-term plan and meet those housing target needs. As far as the impact of all of this on the operating budget and other themes, the 4% provides for a slow and steady increase from now until the end of this period. And the 2% is also in there for the special dedicated capital tax levy. Again, I want to caution that even with 6% high-level parameter or ceiling parameter on the 27 forecast, we are currently struggling with around a $10 million challenge. Some of that relates back to the 7.5 hard savings in the 26 budget. We're not able to replicate that again into 27 because some of the hard savings were one-time in nature. I'll walk you through that in the next slide. Some service level impact changes that we are aware of from the operating plan. We have recognized and know that it will be instantiated throughout this 10-year period is a savings on the waste management baseline. That is a result of some of the Antera contract, and there's been $400,000 removed not just in 26, but for all future budgets in the waste category. We know that our insurance premium came in under that budgeted. We had just prepared the budget in 426. And the very next few weeks in came the insurance premium, and it was lower. So we have taken that and extrapolated it across this forecast. We're getting close to achieving the hard savings of 7.5 as council requested in 26, but approximately 5.5 of that is one-time in nature only, so it doesn't help our longer-term forecast. The areas or new service program areas would be something like the Summit Wellness Center for 230, the operating costs for the new deeply affordable housing unit for Murray Street and Gull River are other such examples of new increases in the operating budget. I would be remiss if I didn't pause on public works, policing, and fuel prices. If a year such as 25 were to be repeated in 26 or any year in this plan and cause for the additional pressures in those years or any future years, that has not been included in this long-term financial plan. We're assuming status quo on the budgets with a nominal increase on them. Workforce planning. The city has set a KPI, and we are in adherence to that KPI, that wages form approximately 40% of our overall gross operating costs, and the cost of living increases have been averaged and forecasted at 3% per annum. We've undertaken some workforce needs, looking at patterns, trends, and challenges, and again, we've put a 3-year pause, if you will, for 27, 28, and 29, and are not recommending the 1% previous KPI for new positions. The growth isn't here, so we feel more moderate for the next 3 years will sustain us, and we'll revisit that when the growth is upon us. With the 40% KPI on our gross wages, we are well within the median of several of the municipal comparators in this range, and we will be bringing you that analysis as we move forward into the budget deliberations later, much later in 26. So we do have the 3-year plan to monitor the workforce growth and those parameters, and we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll be assessing that annually as part of the budget process. We are looking to confirm 3-year needs with departments, forecasting beyond that 3-year need period, looking to growth, legislated changes, and council established service level, whether increases or decreases. So therefore, you can see the trend in the workforce costs over time from now until 2036, and the red line indicates the 40% KPI of our gross operating budgets. And so at the 6% increase, you are well within the 40% KPI. On to the revenue strategy. city is working hard, aligning between the taxation group, development services, and our friends at MPAC to ensure that the new growth and new assessment is added to our tax roll in an expeditious manner. MPAC does the very best they can, but they're not always boots on the ground in a more large geographical area such as ours. So we do a lot of pontificating to get them out there as best we can. We want to undertake a user fee review in 27 and start looking at user fees that ought to be moving more towards cost recovery as one way of managing the tax impact. We're actively pursuing grants, and we're working to improve grant application success rate when they do become available. We've indexed the Canada Community Building Fund, and that is set in the agreement with the feds and the province, so our forecast includes that indexing. All other grants are assumed flatlined for this forecast period. Again, we adjust those in year in the operating budget as they become known to us. I can recall the OMPF coming in very late during budget process last year, and the mayor was the first to know, and we took that $500,000 increase and put it in the budget, and away we go. But for purposes of the forecast, we assume status quo until we get those announcements. All other user fees have been held at 3% generally, again, until we take the time to go into those user fees category by category. What we would like to do is set subsidization parameters with council on some of the fees. So for example, the landfill fees, council may choose to do an analysis with us that sets a goal of 50% cost recovery on landfill fees, 40%, whatever the number, we'd like to keep that current and set a target for that so that we don't fall behind and have to do major updates to the user fees. Referring to the landfill, we are aware that there's approximately $44 million in the capital budget in this long-term financial plan for landfill expansion. So if you don't raise your landfill user rates, we'll find the money elsewhere in this budget and cause pressure on the taxes. Our debt strategy. We are doing very well on our debt strategy. It's taken a few years. We're catching up on our outstanding debt, going out for debt more timely in order to keep our cash flow up to date. So things are really becoming solidified in this area. At the end of 2025, the city's city's debt, including water, wastewater, tax-supported debt, and the housing, was at a balance of $125.92 million. It is projected to end the year at $119.78, and then the line for estimated additional new debt is all based on the capital budgets and the forecasting in this long-term plan. Therefore, the anticipated timelines for securing the debt aren't necessarily going to be the same year in, year out. It will depend on the success of the capital project closure and the success of the expeditious manner in delivering those projects. So we do the best we can to model. All that to say is that we have this well in hand. Our debt servicing ratio is good. You'll see that in the next slide. I did want to comment that these numbers on the debt do not include approximately $39 million of debenture for DCs, development charges. That is because the development charges come into the city and we use that money to cover the debt. So it has net impact on the tax base. So our debt servicing ratio, as I referred to before, being recommended for the June 23rd council meeting to move the debt servicing ratio from 10% to 12.5, which is the orange line on the graph in front of you. The gray line is the combined total of housing, water, wastewater, and tax-supported debt. And you'll see towards the latter half of this plan, the gray line approaches the 12.5. But we'd also like to build in flexibility, opportunity to as mentioned earlier, if a deeply affordable housing opportunity for a project becomes available, we would like the opportunity to use this debt and not be restricted to that 10% and take advantage of any opportunities that come forward. We may also be doing more of the deeply affordable housing in the first half of this plan compared to the latter, and we're continuing to work and refine those numbers with the deeply affordable housing plan coming forward to you soon. So again, our strategy for the past few years, I think you've heard this many times, we are continuing to shift for our state of good repair away from debt and more to being self-reliant on the asset management reserve, barring, of course, something like a large bridge rehab program. If it's tens of millions, we would, of course, debenture that versus pay cash. But barring that, the asset management reserve is in good shape. We are on track to be self-sustainable on the state of good repair within this current 10-year plan. We want to continue the use of using debt primarily for the growth-related and those large capital projects, and we're looking to the ones that have a large life cycle, annual life cycle on them. So for instance, 40 years or greater. We would like to issue debt annually and be up to date to help our cash flow, to take opportunity of variant interest rates, and to support, again, the city's overall position. The city predominantly uses Infrastructure Ontario as the main source of our debenture source. We do some borrowing with the Royal Bank, the city's tendered approver of the bank, and we also have given consideration to internal borrowing from such places as the legacy chest funds. I won't go through all of these assumptions other than to say that we adopt a capital budget, and then we assume that within 3 years that capital project would close, and so that is the timelines that we use for our debt modeling and the debt assumptions. This year we have extended and will include in our debt policy coming forward on June 23rd that the debt year be always 30 years. Most of our assets are 40 to 80 years, and so picking 30 as our maximum debenture term is a prudent activity. It spreads the cost more affordably across many years. We are anticipating that the Bank of Canada will raise the interest rates in the summer of 26, so we've anticipated that in the outer years of this debenture modeling. We're using more interim construction loans when we get into those big growth projects or even any of the city's own major projects, and we'll use more interim construction loans so as not to deplete the city's cash. And again, recommending that we go on the debt servicing ratio from 10 to 12.5%.
Do you want to pause there? You covered a lot of ground, and maybe there are some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's a great idea.
Councillor Warren.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you. I think just a couple things. The Legacy Chest Fund, we've talked about this. This has not happened yet. So are you planning to bring something forward in 2027 on using those funds? My first question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. You're quite right. We've been talking about it for a little bit, but the paramedic headquarters hasn't yet broken ground, so there hasn't been a voluminous amount of money incurred yet. We're working with Director Johnson and the Legacy Chest Fund Committee, and we'll be going there, I believe it's later this month, and we'll be going through the analysis of what are we earning on their investments, what is the city paying on debt, and looking to see if it's a prudent recommendation we'll bring forward. And then if it's favorable to both parties, we'll proceed with that methodology. So would that be predominantly Lindsay, because that's where most of the funding is, but would you include Bob Cajun in that? Through you, Mr. Mayor, you're quite right, Councillor. The majority of the Legacy Chest are remaining in Lindsay, and the paramedic headquarters being in Lindsay, that was a good fit for those. But should a project arise in Bobcaygeon, I don't off the top of my head have the amount in the Bobcaygeon Legacy Chest, but certainly if there is money there and a project that would be worthy of debenturing from or borrowing from the chest funds, we could also consider that in Bobcaygeon. One other question.
A lot of people are talking about the upper levels of government and development charges. Have you heard anything, I guess? And how would that affect us? That would be quite a hit unless there was other funding coming from those levels of government. I'll let you ask.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we just learned the parameters of the details yesterday. The province announced it in the afternoon. We're meeting as an internal group this week and determining what our approach would be, what the benefits, pros and cons are of that. You're right, it won't be 100% instantiated recovery, so we'd have to build into a longer term model what that would look like if the city were to, what the city's capacity and affordability would be on that. So stay tuned, we'll be bringing you something back on that.
Councillor Ashmore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Director Buchanan. Just a couple questions. Previously, we would talk about loan to value for the corporation. In your opinion, the loan to value, do you have like a percentage of what we're at right now, or how strong we are as far as loan to value calculation for the city?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Excellent question, Councillor. I'll go back a few slides to the total amount of debt. You can see at the end of 2026, we're anticipating a closing balance on the debt of just over $120 million, and the city owns $5 billion in assets. So the ratio, if I could do it in my head, is very low.
Okay, and previously that we talked about when we go out to get funds, either it's the Ontario government fund or the bank, we don't have a credit rating, but we looked at establishing a credit rating, but there's a cost to the credit rating. Are we still going to be looking at maybe obtaining a credit rating for the corporation that may make us be able to shop around better for debt equities or debt financing?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the question, Councillor. We did report back to Council, I'm going to say at some point in 25, maybe 24. Time flies here. What I will say, looking again at these debt estimates, these aren't significant enough that would warrant us to want to go out for the credit rating at any point in this 10-year plan. When the debt becomes worthy of the credit rating, we can certainly consider it at that time. But at this value of $120 million, that wouldn't warrant the extra cost, the extra administrative burden. You would need a dedicated person or two to track the debt. And again, the administrative burden right now is not worth the outcome based on the low dollar value of debt we have. However, we will monitor that. And when the scale tips in favor of doing that work, we will do so.
Thank you. And finally, you mentioned we're in a shortfall of roughly $7 million. We've had this program of strategy management and Lean Six Sigma to get more efficiencies in the corporation. Do you think we can bridge the gap with that program? As we've done previously, we've used strategy management to find savings, and they were put towards deficits and helped us a lot.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the city is constantly performing efficiency and finding the most expeditious manner to deliver our services. So I would say that is constantly being reinvested into the budget in order to balance it at the rates we have. You're also aware, we've spoken many times about the modernization and transformation underway. We are soon looking to summate the efficiencies that we've found through some of this automation. But again, it's being reinvested back into the service levels, the inflation, the cost of fuel increasing. So we are constantly doing this service review, efficiency review.
Thank you.
Councillor Joyce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I got a few questions here. Like one thing I looked at, this is a few weeks ago, is the raw materials price index has increased by an astounding 23% over last year. and that would include sand, gravel, oil, all the ingredients of asphalt. And my first thought was to contact Director of Engineering going, how are we going to pave all these roads, commit to those roads? But am I correct in assuming that the higher debt servicing ratio is going to pay for these? We can still meet our commitment on roads by increasing our debt ratio to pay for those? Capital cost.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, rather timely, the Director of Engineering and I just had a discussion on that this morning. Yes, we are anticipating that, especially in the fuel category or the asphalt price index, that's going to put some duress on the capital program this year. We're working with Manager Found, Director Rojas, and what we'll do is bring forward a strategy that if the road were debentured, you're quite right, we would simply increase the debenture, which is why we were looking for flexibility in this 10% to the 12.5 to allow for those kinds of inflations that we anticipate are coming. I can't quantify them yet, so they're not on this graph, but giving us the flexibility that should those prices increase, the new debt servicing ratio at 12.5 will be very sufficient to cover those.
Okay, so we can still meet our road commitment.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, it will be a strategy of increased debenture. If that was the original source, it could be closing some other projects and moving a surplus over to cover, if it were, for instance, a tax-supported cost in that capital project. We'll develop a myriad strategy to come forward to ensure this year's capital is maintained.
Thank you. My other question is more on operating. We still have talked about a $7 million gap that we're fully aware of because it got pushed down the road there. So we're increasing operations from 3% to 4%. I got two questions in here. It was presented some time ago that, during COVID, we basically had a froze staff hirings, and we ran into a situation where, especially in the middle management area of staff, potential staff burnout unless we start hiring again. So two questions in there is 25% instead of 1%. Is that going to be enough to meet our staff obligations to avoid burnout? And the second question, that 1%, is that going to be enough to meet this $7 million hard savings gap? So two questions in there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, if I can, Councillor, I'll deal with one at a time. So your first question was, will the 0.25% increase for new positions in 27 be sufficient? And the answer is we believe so, with some flexibility, of course, for any pressures the department is having. But the reason is that the last 3 years, so 24, 25, and 26, we invested in the staffing. We did some increases to the org chart. As you've experienced, you've seen 30 plus positions in the last annual budgets. That was all to get us here, right-sized from COVID. And now we feel we can put the pause on for the next 3 years because the growth isn't here at this point in time, and we'll revisit it annually as we go through and keep an eye on the growth. So therefore, we feel confident with some wiggle room, some adaptability in case departments are struggling with just that case. Your second question, I have to go back and ask you again, my apologies.
It's okay. The $7 million hard savings gap, that's still out there. I think this is, looking at the plan here, I like it. It makes sense, except for that one piece. How are we, I don't see how that's being tackled yet.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we are tackling the 7.5. This slide is one indicator of that. So hard savings right off the top, approximately $650,000, because as soon as we passed the budget in November, we came up with savings literally in December. So those have been removed from the 26 actuals and gone towards the 7.5 million. We also have, amongst the director team, with the leadership of the CAO, come up with approximately 5.5. of one-time savings. So that would involve things like deferring one of those new positions. Instead of hiring in January, we will hire in September. There are other things like deferring some of the special projects until a year when we can put the resources and commit to it. So there's a myriad of ways we are striving to get to the 7.5. We are doing an update to the end of June to the director team, and we're reconfirming where we are on that 7.5. But we are making great headway on that.
Thank you, Director Brueggemann. One more question. On slide 8, work undertaken in 2025 and 26 to assess workforce needs, patterns, trends, and challenges. What are one or two, or what are the major challenges that have been assessed in the workforce needs?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I could probably give you one or two examples, and I might defer to the CAO who knows the bigger picture. But for instance, I know we still are struggling in the development planning area. We're relying on external consultants, and that's one such area that we're looking to address some of those challenges. But for a more global picture, perhaps CAO Teller could comment.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think maybe expanding on that theme, the major gap is attraction and retention of certain positions, and certainly a market competitiveness that goes along with that. And that is one area that it is actually broad-based. It's in multiple departments where we're looking for specialized services or maybe licensing or degrees or training, et cetera. And so it is something that we are continuously looking at. We're certainly closing that gap substantively based on decisions that Council had made previously and some commitments and investments back in staff. But it hasn't gone away entirely, and it's certainly at the forefront.
Okay, thank you. It's good to know. Good to know. Yeah, thank you very much. Just last as a comment, economists around the world really want to see inflation back at 2%, the way it used to be for many, many years. But somebody keeps messing up with the geopolitical context out there. So I think the 3% assumption going forward is unfortunately a safer assumption. Thank you.
Councillor Perry.
Thanks very much, Mayor, and thanks for this report. I know it couldn't have been easy to have to assemble this. It seems to me to use the vernacular that we're basically kind of pumping the brakes here, given the slowdown on growth. I'm just wondering, I have a question about slide 2, a couple of questions, if you could. Perhaps it's the next slide. There it is, right. So just looking at, you had included in the slide the reduction in housing or housing starts from 500 to 300 on a slide. There it is at the top. And I mean, that's a 40% decrease. And I'm just wondering, I mean, in December, there were hints of the slowdown, but we really had an approach here of still continuing to prepare for growth. And now here we are kind of 6 months later, hitting the brakes, saying the growth has slowed. I'm just curious to learn internally, where are those warning signs? How is this anticipated, and why now not then?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the question, Councillor Perry. The 500 had been predicated on the city's affordable housing plan, the housing plan that had been submitted to the province back when the Building Faster Fund became available, and 500-ish was our target per annum. In 2025, we fell shy of our target, so therefore we did not receive the Building Faster Fund grant for the 25 year. And dropping it to 300 also reflects the drop we saw in the supplemental tax run. If you recall, part of the 25 deficit was because the supplemental tax run or the new growth didn't become experienced in 25. So when we drop it to 300, we're being very specific. It's only for the immediate term of this plan. We will monitor, and again, that's why we come back to you annually with the long-term plan now, instead of putting it on a shelf. At any point when we see the growth back on track, we simply update our model and we rerun the new one. So I would anticipate 300 units for 27. I don't have a crystal ball, but I hope it's a very immediate and short time period.
Well, thanks for that. My question, I guess we're really just using that as an example of a more general question around the forecasts at budget time in December on preparing for growth seem to have changed in terms of the forecasts now, being that growth has slowed and quite significantly. So what were the key indicators that, I'm just curious, in your calculations, what are the key indicators that get monitored and what changed?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the key indicators are the city's building permits that are being monitored. So that's where we saw the drop in 25. The other key indicator is the success of the supplemental tax run from MPAC and picking up those new growth projects. And those have slowed substantially in 25. We did budget somewhat higher in the 26 for the supplemental taxes, but we do anticipate perhaps a shortfall in 26 again. Therefore, it's only prudent to be a bit more conservative in this long-term plan until we see those new builds coming back fast and furious.
Thanks very much. And just a couple of more brief points. The water, wastewater capital projects being pushed out due to slowed growth. I'd really want to make a case there that be considered not linked exclusively to growth, that there are environmental concerns there as well, with bypasses having to be done more frequently in both Lindsay and Fenelon Falls. And so linking those to growth is one aspect, and I'd invite the city to consider the environmental aspects of those needs as well sooner than later, as soon as possible, for those capital projects for wastewater treatment. That was just for your consideration. And lastly, if I could, Mayor, you mentioned about funding the $7.5 million within the internal expenses this past year. And you mentioned some special projects that were approved at budget time, perhaps not proceeding. How's that determination made? And, we have to answer to our constituents about why things are in the budget and then not being fulfilled. Will those be returning, a list of those be returning for council's consideration?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe we'll do an update to council over the summer and advise of how we achieved the 7.5 as an update report. But most of these decisions have been ones that staff are able to make within our jurisdiction. So we'll be bringing forward and advise to council how those $7.5 million savings came to be. We had identified at the time that if it impacted service levels, that we would come before we make the decision to council. To date, we haven't made any of those major service level decisions. These have all been administrative decisions, but yes, we'll provide an update on those.
That would be great. Thank you. When in June next council or over the summer, you were saying?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what we're doing is waiting until the end of Q2 and seeing what position the city's at halfway through the year.
Right.
And then we'll assess whether we've achieved the target and can forecast to the end of the year with confidence. So I would envision possibly August, September at the latest to provide an update on that.
Right. Just word travels, and I know that we as councillors are on the front line of hearing from our constituents about what may or may not be coming through. So I would encourage robust communication with councillors on the list, and consideration, as you mentioned, will certainly be welcomed and looked for in August or September. Thank you very much.
Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, thank you, through you. Yeah, a lot of good questions and answers coming across here. I got a question here is that, we try to do the budget early because that's the way we set it up, but we have a lot of unknowns, like we have public works, we have policing, fuel charges, and so on. So my question is how do you predict, which pretty simple answer, you can't, but where's the money going to come from? Could it come from the debt ratio, or do we need to put something in place? Because when we set a budget and it's unknown, and then there's all this expense, then automatically it doesn't matter what we do for the budget, it's just going to go up.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's a loaded question, Councillor McDonald. First off, I guess I would say you cannot debenture for the operating. So if the operating goes into a deficit, you cannot debenture. And that was the reason we brought you forward the 2025 deficit strategy that was so well thought out and laid out that unfortunately used a lot of the reserves. However, that is why we have them, so that we are prepared for years like that. So this long-term plan is attempting to restore some of those reserves to prepare you again, should that happen. You're aware that the special area rates, though, if that were in a deficit, that gets added to the very next year's final tax bill. So those are treated a little bit differently, and that's where we don't have the choice. Those need to be added right to the tax bill. So no, to answer your question, we can't use the debt servicing ratio to address operations. Do I have a crystal ball and could predict that a year like 25 will never happen again? No, I don't. So therefore, we need those reserves, and we need to inform council as soon as we can on how the state of affairs in year. So to comment on that, the city is also setting a goal to bring you the in-year results earlier in the calendar year and a forecast to the end of the year. So if we did have to make a difficult service level decision, you have time to make that decision and help alleviate, remediate in year.
Thank you. And the next question is that, and that's just trying to be transparent to warn people as we go forward that we have the unknown, so we don't know what that is. So we do our best to kind of figure out what the budget's going to be, but we do have some unknowns. The only other question I had was transit being $600,000 short. Is there no way of tracking that monthly and not be a shock at the end of the year that we're $600,000 short? Wouldn't that be, can we do something that would predict what we could be short and earlier in that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, by virtue of bringing and monitoring the in-year actuals on a more regular basis and doing accurate forecasting, yes, we should know that. Things do take a while to update sometimes and communications to happen, but yes, that is one of the reasons that we will do more regular in-year reporting.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Richard.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks very much. Just point of clarification, if you don't mind. So June 23rd, we'll be bringing the debt servicing ratio to the 10% up to the 12.5. That really is us taking on more debt just to manage the existing capital projects for the rest of the year? Not additional.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, let me just go to that slide. So the debt servicing ratio is being recommended to increase to the orange line from 10 to the 12.5 in the debt policy coming forward on June 23rd. The reason for that is that you can see towards the end of this plan, the gray combined water, wastewater, housing tax is getting close to the 12.5, but the earlier portions, if opportunity presents itself, we want to be able to take advantage and move on some of the deeply affordable housing projects, which may put more of them into the first 5 years of this plan versus the latter half of the plan. We've also seen, to Councillor Joyce's question, what if inflation hits our capital projects? Well, then we would come back to council and seek additional debenture on those. So all of this debt servicing is predicated on the current approved capital plan and the forecasted 10-year capital plan. It's just giving us a little bit more flexibility, adaptability to make decisions in year should the opportunity arise or the need arise on inflation materials, asphalt price index, etc.
Yes, and I mean, it's prudent to think that way as well, because we don't want to increase that deferred list, because that deferred list is going to end up costing us more in the long run anyways, right? So, and also we just also need to keep in mind though that, future budgets are committed to paying debt payments as well, so.
Thank you. I have a question. This is a stupid question. Want to bet? Debt servicing ratio. My interpretation of debt servicing is paying back the debt. So I am incorrect in assuming that we are not going to pay back 10%, but move to 12.5% payback per year. Is that correct? You're talking about raising the debt limit from 10% to 12.5%. I interpret servicing as paying it off.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the debt servicing ratio, you're quite right. It takes the revenue that the city has compared to the expenses of paying the debenture principal and interest. Your mortgage, if you would, versus your annual salary. And it measures the percentage that we feel is prudent and financially responsible. We aren't suggesting that we go out and get a whole bunch of new debt just because. We are following a very strict 10-year plan. We're monitoring the plan. We're monitoring growth. This just gives us the flexibility should inflation hit at any point. Again, should a housing project present itself that council chooses to move towards the target of the new housing, you're still well within the 12.5. It's just the ability to pay that debt. So you're quite accurate, Mr. Mayor. It's the expenses of the debt versus the city's revenue.
It's the amount we're going to pay back.
Correct.
Thank you.
So again, the city's total debt at this point in time, outside of the development charges debt, which is self-funded, at the end of 26, we're forecasting that new debt brought in, debt payments made, the city will be at a balance of 120 million on 5 billion worth of state of good repair assets. So we are in good shape.
Thank you. So please continue with the presentation. I think all the questions have been exhausted to this point.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tough crowd today. Reserves, the final component, and then I'll turn it over to my colleague, Manager Found, for the capital section. The reserves, after utilizing the 16.8 million to fund the sorry, I'm sure the treasurer's online, the 16 plus million that we use from the reserves to fund the 2025 deficit leaves you with 54.587 million in reserves available for council's use. We're trying to ensure that we don't rely on annual surpluses, hope for the best, and then move money into a reserve. This long-term forecast is predicated on strategically taking a proactive approach. For the immediate term of this long-term plan, we're looking to build up and continue with the asset management reserve, that dedicated capital levy. Keep that going. We're doing great on that. We recognize that the general tax stabilization needs money in it to allow you the flexibility for those in-year nuances. The environmental disaster reserve, I don't think I need to comment on why we need to build that one up, and we need to start getting to a point where we're self-sufficient should these disasters continue occurring. The expansionary housing reserve, this is being recommended through the deeply affordable housing plan, and I think you've seen it over the last few presentations. The city needs skin in the game in order to get some of those capital grants from the upper levels of government. So we have to have some of our own money as seed money. So building that expansionary housing through this sustainable, slow, incremental contribution annually in the budgets and the long-term forecast. And the primary care reserve, that is for doctor recruitment, but also for local primary care, retention, and also the organization support that's come before council. So we focused on these five as our predominant ones to help build up in the first half of this long-term plan. The reserve policy is coming forward to council June 23rd that supports this long-term plan. It will be the first ever reserve policy and debt policy that you will have passed. So it's the building blocks to this long-term plan. We did a lot of streamlining of the reserves as we were doing the 2025 deficit strategy, and we collapsed, moved, consolidated reserves into what I'll now call city more general reserves that are adaptable for all departments and the city to manage. An assumption in this long-term plan is to continue with that 2% dedicated capital levy, which is making your asset management plan sustainable. Again, it is working. So the long-term plan and investment was a prudent exercise. In the reserve policy, we want to bring you reserve optimal balances and then how to address achieving those balances, whether it's annual contributions through this long-term plan, whether it's finding any available funds to give a quick injection into these reserves. The strategy will be a combination of both. So an example of any available funds, for instance, if we were to be successful on any grants that weren't anticipated in the budget, we would take that grant and instead of returning the money from its original source, we would put it to whichever reserve, according to our optimal balances, needs it the most. So that will come forward and we'll have recommendations on optimal balances for the reserves. It'll continue to build over time, but this will be the first foray at this. So an example of what I mean when I say optimal balances, if we take the general tax stabilization in the middle section of this graph, leading KPIs, benchmarks amongst other municipalities, our friends at the province say that your optimal balance should be 5% of the tax levy for a general tax stabilization. So that would be 15.7 million for this municipality. We currently have 1.2 million in that reserve, and even if we gave it 400,000 a year, as we have in this long-term plan, you would still only be at 4.5 at the end of this 10-year long-term forecast. So you're still shy on your optimal balance. So that's why I'm saying each new opportunity or funding that becomes available will ascertain where each of these optimal balance reserves would be required. In the meantime, we've done this slow and steady approach to continue injecting money into the reserves every year in this long-term financial plan. And with that, that is the end of the reserves, and I'll turn it over to Manager Found for the capital forecast.
Yeah, I have one question. If you go back to the slide where it says the chest fund has $24 million in it, very first slide I think it is, but the chest fund, you can only use that for certain projects, correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's controlled, and the parameters are in the agreements and managed through those chest fund committees.
Okay. Are you going to do it from your chair, or are you going to, okay. Put your mic on, please.
Didn't realize it was off. Okay, how's that? Very good. Thanks very much for taking the time to digest this long presentation. If it's okay with you, Mr. Mayor, I'll start off with addressing further addressing some of the questions that had come up. So I believe Councillor Ashmore asked about our debt as a value of our assets. So we have about $5.5 billion of assets, roughly. And so if you look at the current debt as it stands today, that's about 3% of our value, in the order of 3%, so very low. Another question had come up about, I guess I will actually address that later. It's something Councillor Perry brought up, but it's better to address it later in the presentation. So I'm here to talk to you about capital and special projects forecast. You may recall that back in August last year, we came to council with this forecast, or an earlier version of this forecast. It was fairly detailed. It talked about stated good repair needs, expansionary needs, special projects needs, and also looked at the differences between tax supported and water wastewater. So how is the forecast informed? Well, we have the asset management plan, first and foremost, for stated good repair. We've got the water wastewater rate study, which informs both stated good repair and expansionary. The development charges background study, which informs our growth-related capital needs for both tax-supported and water, wastewater areas. And then, of course, we've got our service master plans and strategies. So you'll see that a number of them become reflected in some of the plans that I had just mentioned. Annual review and revisions by departments. That exercise is ongoing right now, where we ask departments to continually review the forecast, make sure that it's up to date, make sure we have the right information. And I think that speaks a bit to Councillor McDonald's question about keeping on top of things and trying to get ahead of issues before they become worse. And then finally, legislation and service levels. So in some cases, legislation dictates a service level and we don't have a choice. Water, wastewater is a great example of that. And then in other cases, council will set the service level. So what are some of the assumptions that are underlying the forecast? Well, the first one listed here, Ms. Boogaboom touched on already, and that's the dedicated capital levy, set to continue to increase at 2% of the previous tax levy until about 2034 when it becomes sustainable. And so we're continuing to monitor that, and I would concur with her comments that this has been a very effective tool at moving the city towards sustainability. And so I appreciate that council continues to support this. And also, please keep in mind that this is a temporary measure. So once sustainability is reached, this thing goes away. And by that I mean that 2% escalation rate, which is fairly aggressive, that would then come down to an inflationary adjustment each year once we reach a sustainable level. So that's another piece of this story to keep in mind. General capital cost inflation is remaining in the forecast at 3% a year. There may be obviously some exceptions to that. We've heard a lot about how the cost for asphalt has increased quite a bit. We don't know yet how far into the future that is going to last. So we don't know, for instance, whether that is going to be primarily a 2026 blip, in which case this 3% is probably okay, or whether it's going to be something that is sustained into 2027 and perhaps even beyond, in which case we'll have to revisit this, at least for the projects that are affected. Another piece that, another assumption I should say that is quite critical here is that we're continuing along the plan to eliminate all of the deferred capital needs from 2023, and that will be done by 2029. And I'll talk a little bit more in the presentation about that. And as Director Boogaboom mentioned, there are certain major expansionary water, wastewater capital projects that we have deferred in the forecast in response to the slowed growth. And I will speak a little bit more about that later on, at which point I'll address Councillor Perry's question about that. So I'll get into some graphs that you have seen before. You saw them last August, but these are revised versions of them. So this one charts out our state of good repair capital forecast for tax supported and water wastewater needs. So tax supported is the dark blue, is in the dark blue bars, and water wastewater is in the light blue bars. You'll see that on the tax supported side, there is a bit of a spike in the years 2028 to 2030. And that's primarily because of a concerted effort to reconstruct a number of roads in Cobeconk. That is scheduled for 2028. And in 2029 and 2030, we have replacement of the bridge in Fenland Falls. So that's another large spike in our needs. This slide shows our expansionary capital forecast, again, by tax supported and water wastewater needs. And you'll see here that towards the latter end of the forecast, we have some large spikes, both in the tax supported side and the water wastewater side, but of course, predominantly on the water wastewater side. And those two spikes, for the most part, reflect expansion of the Lindsay water treatment plant and the Lindsay wastewater treatment plant. And as Director Brukaboom mentioned, we're very much tracking the situation when it comes to growth to ensure that the timing for these projects is appropriate. And then finally, in terms of the graphs, this is the chart showing our forecast for special projects. You'll see that there's a lot of bouncing around when it comes to this area, and that is to be expected. This is just a naturally volatile area of our expenditure, which is precisely why the projects that fall into this category are in this category and not in an operating budget somewhere. Now, this is a graph I do want to spend a little bit of time on because although you have seen it before, it is very important to see our progression towards sustainability on the stated good repair side. In the blue bars, what we have are our projected contributions to the asset management reserve, which are entirely funded by the dedicated capital levy, and the bars are increasing based on that 2% rate that we had talked about before. And then at the top of the graph, you'll see that light blue line, which is our sustainability line, in other words, our target. That's where we're trying to get to, and you'll see that convergence occur as we get further out into the forecast. And by 2034, we should be sustainable, provided we stick to the plan and that the parameters shaping the forecast don't change a whole lot. But of course, things do change, and we'll have to continue to monitor our progress and revisit this graph as necessary. And I did want to take a bit of time to talk about the deferrals. So we're at a state now where we have only about 30% of the deferrals left to tackle, which is great news. It shows that we've made excellent progress on this front, but it also indicates that there's still quite a bit to go. And the good news is that we have a plan to phase out these deferrals. You see that summarized in this chart here, where by 2029, there should no longer be any deferrals left in the list. So that's very good news. You'll also see in this chart how the recent budgets have impacted this deferral list in a positive way by tackling it. In 2026 budget, so this year's budget, you'll see is in fact the largest contributor so far, and based on the plan, it will be the largest contributor overall. So again, that's very good news, and I am very, very pleased that both staff and council have this as a shared commitment to phase these deferrals out and to get us out from underneath that pressure. And I know this relates to a question that Councillor Richardson had brought up. What happens when we defer projects? We get into a problem like this. And so we very much want to continue this progress and get to a point where there's no more deferrals. And if councillors have questions about deferrals, I can elaborate on why we want to avoid them if that's of interest to council. There's some next steps here. I guess I'll just run through them if that's okay. But before I do, I just wanted to briefly address Councillor Perry's question about water wastewater projects being deferred in the capital forecast. And so correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the question was really about the fact that some of the projects will address environmental issues, will address issues that exist today, not necessarily just growth. And that is absolutely true. There are some projects that are like that. And so what I can say is that the projects that we had deferred in the forecast are primarily just a purely expansionary type, and they're not of the type that Councillor Perry is talking about. So again, we're trying to do our very best to optimize these kinds of decisions when it comes to changing the timing of projects. And of course, the environment is very much top of mind. So we will keep on top of the projects that have a combined outcome to them. They're meant to help us be prepared for growth, but they're also meant to help us address things like bypasses at sewage pumping stations and treatment plants. So in terms of next steps, we'll be coming back to you on June 23rd for a few items. One is the long-term financial plan itself, and then there'll be as well a couple of reports on debt and reserve policies. We are looking to publish the revised long-term financial plan in August, and of course draft the 2027 budget based on that plan. And in terms of timing of the budget, we're looking to distribute a proposed budget to council in December of this year, given the election, with deliberations happening early next year. So with that said, Mr. Mayor, I'm pleased to take any questions there might be.
Thank you. I do have a question, and it kind of straddles reserves and capital. When we look at building an environmental disaster reserve, and we have $200,000 in there right now, which, you know, would probably cover a large traffic accident. We're going to have to make some hard decisions and perhaps reduce capital spending in some year or other and put a big chunk of money in there. I don't know what that big chunk is. I don't know if it's $10 million. Like we know that 3% of our operating budget is around $9 million, and that's probably what the province would insist we spend before they would help again. Is it reasonable then over a 2-year or 3-year period to reduce capital spending by, let's say, $3 million a year and put it into that reserve? Do you think that that is a good strategy, or we're shooting ourselves in the foot with what you just talked about with deferrals?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's an excellent question, and it does not have an easy answer. There is one strategy that could be followed that is it's different than the one that you laid out. One strategy is to look at our existing capital projects, and particularly look at ones that could be debentured but are not, or ones that are debentured but could be debentured more. So in other words, they have a mix of funding between debenture and something else. And what we could do there then is debenture those projects which are currently not debentured, and then back out the funding that is displaced and put that into a reserve, the environmental reserve as an example. So that's one way that could be done. And the advantage of doing that is twofold at least. One is you don't defer any projects, so that's great news. The second thing is it spreads the pain of raising those reserve funds over time, because now you're debenturing projects instead of raising all of that funding at once on the tax levy. So that's an alternative strategy that avoids the deferral of projects.
But isn't one of our caveats going to be that we're only going to debenture those projects that are lasting 30 years, which are usually much larger projects?
Yeah, so through you to you. Great question. So we still have some projects that could be debentured. They would just not be ideal debentures. So they may be projects that result in assets that live for 20 years or 25 years. It doesn't mean we can't debenture for them. It's just they're not the greatest candidates. And so I think it would be worthwhile, though, despite that, to at least consider debenturing them if raising this money for the reserve, for the environmental disaster reserve, is so paramount.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Ms. Bokaboom or Mr. Found? Councillor Yeo.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So we talk about all this, it's a very aggressive plan. And you talk about building this reserve for natural disaster and all that. And it's needed. But, and you can forgive me because I'm leaving this, but why do we need it? Why do we want to look good? Why can't we be the destitute one? Why when something happens, do we need that money? Why can't we just hold our hand out and say, oh my God, we need help? So why plan? Why not be the destitute one? The one that it always seems to work. City of Montreal did it for years. Oh, we're bankrupt, we need money. So give me your reasoning.
Okay. I will do my very best to. So I'm sure we will never forget the ice storm. At least we will not soon forget the ice storm of last year. And that came at a substantial cost, as we know. It's really because of things like that. That's the reason why. Director Bukuim spoke to the amount. So why do we want to target 3% of the levy? Because we know the province has a standard whereby it says, yes, we will come help you if there's a disaster that goes beyond your means, but we expect you to contribute 3% of your levy towards that effort. And so this is really in a way of matching the province's expectations. So I think that's where this is coming from. So if we want the help, in other words, if we want to be the destitute one, we can't be absolutely destitute. We could be somewhat destitute. And then secure the province's help. If we're absolutely destitute, then we won't get any help, and so that puts us in an even worse position.
Right. So we should change the name to a Brave Face Reserve.
Your words, not mine.
Councillor Joyce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I had questions on the reserve. The Dr. Bukuim said slow and steady, which I appreciate, but I think it's too slow, too steady. My question was going to be, and I'm going to still frame it. So if we can assume for a moment we can't debenture any projects anymore, they're already fully debentured. And yet I said to you, we need to double the amount of monies going to the reserves. How do we do that?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so just to clarify, you're supposing that there is no room to debenture existing projects? Basically,
if we didn't do more debentures, what would be an alternative strategy? How would we do it?
Yeah, well, there are some other strategies. So one is to, I know it's not very exciting, one is to increase the tax levy even more than what's already forecasted. I don't think there's a whole lot, my understanding is there's not a whole lot of appetite for that. Another route is to review your service levels and to say, okay, is the package we're providing affordable? Should we look at, are there some areas where we might need to use user fees a little bit more than we are now? So those are potentially some options. I'm as you know, I'm not a fan about deferring projects, but if deferring projects is part of an overall strategy to reduce service levels because service levels are considered unaffordable, then I can understand that. So those are some strategies that could be followed. You'll see that I think you're right that what's being proposed for those reserve contributions over the next 10 years is pretty modest, and perhaps is not aggressive enough. We'll have to take a look again at our situation and see if we can do a little bit better. But I think what I would also just say is the predication that you had laid out is in fact not the case, thankfully for us. There is room to debenture for projects, lots of room. It's not a small amount. So there is room to use that tool more effectively than we are now. And again, I would suggest that we would go to that before going to those other strategies I had just laid out, which I think are less palatable.
Thank you. A couple more things. Thank you. We've got to ask the hard questions and get it on, the cold hard facts that we have to struggle with. So thank you for that. The other one is just a curious question here on slide 26 2033 and 2035, we have the spikes. I'm just curious, what's coming first, the water treatment plant or the sewage treatment? It looks like one or the other.
Yeah, good question. So just to make sure you're referring to the spikes here in this chart. So in 2033, that would be the Lindsay water treatment plant. And then in 2035 is the Lindsay wastewater treatment plant.
Thank you. And the last thing is more of a comment on slide 28. I'm pretty sure our happy place convergence was 2033 before, and you did preface this with this slide will change as conditions change. So am I right? Is conditions already changed and we're into 2034?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, correct. Conditions have indeed changed. So the main change here for this chart is that growth has slowed. And of course, growth compounds with tax increases, right? So the more growth you have, the more effective the tax increases are. But also the converse is true. The less growth you have, the less effective the tax increases are. And so that's why there's now a delay by about 1 year in this chart. And you're right, when we did present this earlier, we had to qualify the chart and say, yes, conditions could change. And but at the same time, that doesn't change our overall commitment. And our overall commitment is that within the forecast horizon, we will reach sustainability.
Thank you very much.
So, Lindsay Water Treatment Plant and wastewater plant, most of that will be covered by DCs?
Yes, so through you, Mr. Mayor, it does depend on what the EAs determine. So we have 2 EAs right now ongoing that will inform those 2 projects. It very much depends on what the ultimate solution is. So if the ultimate solution is just to do a pure expansion and we do not touch the existing plant, then yes, 100% of the cost would likely be covered by DCs. But if the solution is you need to not only expand the plant, but you need to replace the plant at the same time, then we're looking at a substantial added cost that's on the user rate. My guess is there's going to be some kind of medium solution between those 2 extremes, probably.
Like building a second one.
That's possible. Building a second plant, moving the existing plant to a different location. That's another potential solution. We just don't know yet. And so what you see here is predominantly based on the expansionary side of that spectrum. So in essence, what this graph is based on is the assumption that we're really just mostly looking at an expansion as opposed to a replacement. But we won't know until the EA is done.
My last question is, where are we in terms of the Northwest Trunk and recovering the DCs from that? Isn't there's a sunset on that hiatus from paying DCs, which I thought was 10 years, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, I can speak to that somewhat, but I may have to defer to Director Bukaboom. So my understanding is that in 2015, that project was completed and commissioned, and a 20-year debenture was issued to fund the project. The idea being that the capital charges flowing in would then help with the repayment of that debenture. So that was 2015. So that gives us a horizon of 2035. Funny enough, matches this chart here. And I'm not sure exactly where we are in terms of the percentage of cost recovery. But my understanding is that under the bylaw that imposes the charges, there is no sunset date. So in other words, the capital charge works like a DC in that it's triggered when development occurs. So when now they can always prepay. The developers could always prepay, right? But that period sort of passed. The ones who wanted to prepay have already done it. So who's left is obviously in the group where they will pay when the development occurs. And of course, I can't tell you when that would be, but maybe Ms. Bukaboom can supplement.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have the exact number of that debenture on the top of my head, but you will see it as part of the financial statements and a more deep dive on the debt balance at the end of December 2025 on June 23rd when the financial statements and the audit are presented. But Mr. Manager Found is correct. The developers are paying as they come online. So, however, last I looked at the debenture, it is reducing. I just don't have the number on the top of my head.
Yeah, I think originally it was 19 million, but I could be off by $1 million or $2 million. Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, through you, one question. You know what, for the last few years, we've talked about growth, and what we're going to do for growth, and all of a sudden it didn't happen. I guess my next question is that if we're going to stop and thinking about growth, what happens if it picks up? Are we ready? Are we prepared and ready if it does pick up?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, that's a great question. It's very much a balance and exercise, right? So we want to be ready for growth. To your point, to Councillor McDonald's point, but at the same time, we don't want to prematurely build, and we certainly don't want to overbuild unnecessarily for growth. And so it's a delicate balance and exercise. It's the exercise that underlies the change between this chart and its earlier version that you saw in August last year. So I'll try to give you some assurances that I think we're striking the right balance. So first of all, we're undertaking several EAs that will inform these massive growth-related projects. It's not just water treatment plants and wastewater treatment plants. We're talking about roads, depots. We're talking about other major works, such as the Colburn Street Bridge, that are essential for growth. Now, in some cases, these projects, they need to proceed on their current schedule, whether growth slows down or not, because they're meant to serve another purpose. So let's say there's a sewage pumping station that is constantly bypassing. And we know that its replacement is tied to its expansion. The only way we're going to expand it is by replacing it. And so in that case, we're going to move ahead with that project, even if growth has slowed a lot, because it's essential for another reason. And then another assurance I can give you is that once we have these EAs and the designs done that flow from the EAs, then we're in a very good position to move on a project. And that's when we have some flexibility about when a project occurs. So those are the low costs too of the project, right? Design, EA, those are minimal costs compared to the projects themselves. And so it doesn't cost us a whole lot to be prepared. And so I hope that gives you some assurance that even if growth is slowed, we're not slowing down necessarily on all the preparation. We may push out some of the major construction projects, but the preparation is very much ongoing.
Thanks. I like that we're going to be prepared, meaning that we have all the work ready to go. So it's like a shovel in the ground, right? So that's good to hear. And I guess just another comment that that's why DC charges are very important, right?
Thank you.
No comment.
Ms. Bogaboom, I think we got a message that you have the numbers on the Northwest Trunk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, staff, for listening along. The balance on the Northwest Trunk is 6.7 million. And you're right, my recollection after 10 years of working on that file was that we debentured approximately 19 million of debt for that project.
Thank you. All right, I need a motion to receive the presentation. Councillor Doble, Councillor Yeo, all in favor? And that's passed, then it gets forwarded to the next council meeting. Thank you both very much, and thank you for the presentation. Do you want to take a break for 10? Okay, we'll come back at 3:30. Call the meeting back to order. Move on to consent matters. That all the proposed recommendations shown in section 9.1 of the agenda be approved by the committee of the whole in order that they appear on the agenda sequentially numbered and forwarded to council for consideration at the next regular council meeting, save and except 9.1.1. I have a mover and seconder. Councillor McDonald, Councillor Ashmore. All in favor? And that's passed, and 911 is yours, Councillor Perry.
Thank you very much, Mayor. This is very, very straightforward. I just wanted to thank Ms. Turner for her advanced consultation with myself and with others regarding the Indigenous sections of this archaeological plan. I wanted to make sure I lifted that up publicly and conveyed my appreciation for the strength and the spirit in which that was done. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Director Barry had to leave. She had another meeting, but she said to thank you for your kind words.
You bet. And with that, I'll just move it as printed.
Thank you. All in favor? And that's passed. It'll work one day. Moving on, we have a memorandum regarding a letter of support for a flyby by the Lindsay Legion. Councillor McDonald, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, just quickly, yes. The Legion approached me and they would like to do a flyby, but the Canadian Air Division requires a letter of support from the municipality as part of the process approval. I think it would be nice to have that, and that's why I'm bringing it here today to get the approval.
Councillor Yule, you're seconding that. Anybody want to speak to it? I think it's pretty straightforward. Do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, just briefly, I think 3 years ago in Norland, Remembrance Day ceremony, and we had a flyby with the stealth helicopter from the Armed Forces, and it was really cool. So, yeah. It's an awesome chance. It doesn't happen all the time, so it's a pretty big deal. So it's good.
Well, it's for their, 100th anniversary. So, yeah, good stuff. Okay, all in favor? And that's passed. Item 10.2 is a memorandum regarding a recommended bylaw exemption permitting 1 bag of diapers and incontinence products in addition to the 1 bag of garbage limit in urban areas. Councillor Warren, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, just briefly, we talked about this at Waste Management Committee, and I've received quite a few comments and questions about this, that especially young families would be paying extra to have an extra bag, and also seniors who need that extra bag also. This move is not going to cost any more money because it's going to landfill anyway. So I think this is something that is a good thing. We listened, and I think we should give an extra bag to those folks. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me see if I can get you a seconder. Councillor Doble, do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. First of all, thank you to Councillor Warren for that motion. Earlier in the year, when we introduced the changes to the garbage collection and recycling policy, I know I received a number of calls from folks in Ward 5, and I'm sure that I'm not alone, that those of us within the urban centers would have heard from people as well, young families. And what I was struck by in the conversations that I had with those folks was they understand and they support the goals of what we're trying to do, but they're concerned, and they're having to pay upwards to $200 a year more because of their circumstances. And I just don't think that's fair. And so I'm really pleased with Councillor Warren's memorandum. Certainly there are concerns regarding the potential abuse of the system, and we need to hear from staff about this and make sure that whatever changes we make to the process mitigate against such abuse. But I am fundamentally in support of this memorandum.
Okay, I got a number of people here. Councillor Perry.
Thanks very much, Mayor, and thank you very much for bringing this memo and the second on that. I'd just like to add that at the time that the policy came out, I too, in Ward 3, heard from constituents with regard to primarily diapers and incontinence products as a need to be accepted or exempted through this policy in its implementation. Similar to most of the policies that we have, including, for example, short-term rentals, from experience, we put things out there. Sometimes there are unintended consequences, some things that need to be changed, course corrections made. I think this is a classic example of that, of being responsive to specific needs. And I mentioned to Manager Zerko at the time about these concerns. She had committed to bringing this to the Waste Management Committee, and I'm very pleased that it did indeed make it there for deliberation. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Richard.
Thank you, through you. Absolutely, I understand it. I'm receiving it as a rural councillor as well, that there's some issues with not, just the folks that are under the single source separation organics. So my questions are, because we are obviously moving into a bylaw here, we're not getting a report from staff. So who is eligible? Like, is it infants, medical daycare operators, group homes? If there's some more background, you may have done your homework on this, you can help me out there, but you just want to make sure that it's not impacting, the collection contracts. We don't have all that information that you have.
So just to give you a little bit more information, because we have clear bags, and it's obvious that it's going to be incontinence products or diapers. It's pretty obvious what it is. So, right now there is, you could go through Waste Management to get a medical dispensation for incontinence products, but it's a bit more convoluted than, obviously, it's diapers in a bag. So I don't see, I think it could go back to staff. Manager Zerko did bring this up, that it could be a problem for young families and people who are using incontinence products. So I don't know what more information that you may need. It's not going to cost any more because it's going to be landfilled. So it's either they would have to pay for an extra bag, which is up to maybe $250 actually, if they're putting out a extra bag a week for young families. So it's an extra cost. So I'm not sure exactly what you need.
Well, is there registration required with this program?
Not at this point. We did talk about that, possibly having that registration, but it's kind of one of those obvious things that you've got a bag there. I guess you could go that way. We did talk about that. The incontinence products you do at this point, but when we talked about it at Waste Management Committee, it was pretty obvious because we have clear bags. So it would actually probably cost more if we did that. We did talk about that. If we went that route and have everybody register, that would cost more in the long run to have staff do that.
All right, so this bylaw exemption.
Yes.
Is as printed.
Yes.
And if we need to make another exemption because it's being overused or there's issues.
Sure. They just didn't want to get into more administration, which would cost more money in the long run. Okay.
Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, thank you, through you. Yes, I had similar situations that I had some seniors in my area that had some health issues and so on. So there is already a bylaw for that. All you have to do is go to the doctor, you have to get a note, and what happens is that the city will send you tags based on how many you use, and they'll give you so many tags per month. So there's a bylaw right now to do that. So it works out pretty well, but you have to get a doctor's note, supply that, and so on. They did do that, and it worked, and right now it's working fine for them. So is this something that you're, like, I guess you can't use a tag, but when you said in the contract an extra cost for a bag, you mean that they would pay for an extra bag? I'm not sure.
No. So the whole point of this change in the bylaw is there'd be less administration for that whole medical side of things, right? So somebody's putting out an extra bag, it's obvious that it's incontinence products or diapers. So it would actually maybe save a little bit of money, maybe in the grand scheme of things, because you're going to have less administration.
Councillor Joyce.
I'm on the Waste Management Committee, so I'll help clarify. We did ask these questions. The administration cost comes back, when it comes to adults that need incontinence products, there are a few, so we can manage that. If we want to do the same policy debate, there's too many babies, okay? There's too much administration to do these forms, and we have more than one baby quite often. And so it's just too much. So as Councillor Warren said, it's a clear bag policy. The collector comes along, he sees one bag of garbage, another bag full of diapers. Clearly, this is okay. We're just going to pick it up. If you see two bags and there's not nearly enough diapers happening here or incontinence products, it's going to be left behind. Yeah. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. We're leaving it to the collector to make that decision. Communication will go out. I'm kind of making a supposition.
2 weeks after it goes to council.
You know, my recommendation to the resident there is put the garbage in one bag and diapers in another bag, and make it clear in the clear bag policy that their two bags can be picked up, and it will be measured and monitored. And to Councillor Dole's concern, if there's abuse, then we'll have to revisit it. But we think it's pretty straightforward. It's going to work without an overarching administrative complication and cost associated with it. Have I kind of captured that?
Absolutely.
Councillor Warren?
Yeah.
Councillor Yule.
Thank you, and through you, and not to belabor the point, but I haven't read the bylaw in a while, a long time. But the bylaw, I thought, was you were allowed to put incontinence and personal products in a non-clear bag, because some people, frankly, don't want their neighbor knowing they're using diapers. So I see the need for babies, absolutely, and there's got to be something in the bylaw saying that baby diapers can be in a clear bag, but I think a lot of people are still going to use this other program so they can have that sense of privacy. So I think there's got to be a hybrid model there for the two ways, because I'm sure the bylaw says that non-clear bags are available for incontinence products, so.
Just to comment on that one, through you, Mr. Mayor, is that these people that are getting their tags can put them in a clear bag. They do put them in a clear bag, but probably some don't. Yes, okay.
Okay, so ironically, Councillor Moran, you moved this when it first came to council as printed. It went to the Waste Management Committee, and they had no objections to it. It went back to the Waste Management Committee, and they really had no objections to it, and nothing was changed. And now it's back here to change it, and we haven't even started the program yet. So we don't know if it's going to work or it's not going to work. I have some sympathy for the issue, but I would like to see, you know, even with the bylaw, I'd like to see an opinion from staff about how this is going to work. So that's where I am. Anyway, so you can do it as sum up.
Okay. No more questions? Yeah, I think you could go to, I was listening to people as Councillor Doble seconded the motion. I've received quite a bit of pushback and feedback from people. I know other councillors have around the table, and it's actually showing the public that we're listening. Sure, you know, it came to waste management, but and then I brought it again, and we had another fulsome discussion about it actually last week. And I think people were mostly in agreement. So that's where it is. So yes, we're listening. And that's why we're doing this.
Refer to staff.
And yeah, and I'll refer it to staff also if people would like that. I'll do a friendly amendment to myself then.
So we'll do this,
or I can extract
and we'll
it,
do
council.
it as a follow-up.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That was sum up. So all in favor? And that passes. Do you want to do your follow-up?
Sure, that the issue of diapers in clear plastic bags in the urban areas that receive SSO, that a report come back to council on the feasibility of allowing one extra bag for incontinence and diaper products.
In the urban areas where...
I did say that earlier.
Okay.
Yes, I did. That receive SSO.
Okay. All in favor? What's the timeline is coming back?
Well, as soon as possible, because, you know, the bylaw's out there. I tried to get this done earlier before the bylaw came out, so there wasn't as much confusion, but as soon as possible, whatever that could be. Yeah. July council meeting, please.
Just a second.
So I just want to maybe clarify through the chair. I'm understanding that the recommendation as printed is being put forward to council. And so the follow-up is, in my opinion, it would be counter to the action that's already in the memo, which is to bring a bylaw amendment forward and enact it. So
the bylaw amendment comes as an attachment to the report. And do both on the same thing.
I'm just confirming procedurally, because again, right now it says bring forward amendments to a bylaw and start the program. And yet we're being requested to ask for a report back. And as I was listening to the wording, it would be on the feasibility of adding a second bag for pickup. But it's essentially the same request. It's just going straight to amendment. Well, it's a recommendation right now. It has to go to council. So I wonder if any follow-up should just happen at council as a recommendation, as a decision in that context. But right now, the recommendation's already been put forward by the majority.
Through you, and it was at Waste Management, and I think that it would be a quick turnaround for Manager Durko to do a quick report on that, because I think she was quite fine with the conversation around the table. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that. Yeah, go to council.
Manager Porter, are you Did you want to weigh in on this at all? I'll bet not.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the council. Manager Durko's actually on the call, so she's free to answer questions right now if anybody would like, which is a saving grace to me.
There you go. Have you been listening to the discussion?
I have, yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Would you like to make any comments or wait and see?
Yeah, sure. I can add to the discussion that's been happening. So we did have some conversations about this at the Waste Management Advisory Committee. I think what we're recommending or what we've discussed with Councillor Warren is clear bag exemption that would be just diapers. So there would be a second bag permitted if it contained diapers only, and that was the discussion. We could come back to council with a report and the bylaw amendment at the same meeting if that was the direction from council.
Yeah, I think the CAO is saying they're contrary, so we may not want to do that.
Just maybe through the mayor, and through you, I just feel like a report back, it's been talked about. We're not going to add any value to the debate. What was put forward here was constructed as a way as a process to amend the bylaw. It's very clear in an exemption that it's a second bag solely for diaper or incontinence products. That's the only way we can effectively enforce it. And so if council has an appetite to make that exemption, the pathway I think is already there. The alternative would be let the program proceed as is, monitor it, we report back after a period of time, because that's the only way we're going to be able to give you any further guidance on, is it being used? Is it a burden when it's a single bag and we're getting good uptake? So there's really only those two pathways. But at this point, committee's already weighed in and voted on the recommendation at hand. So I would recommend it just go to council. And if you are proceeding with that, you would then make a decision and adopt it then. If you needed further, we just aren't going to be able to add to anything at the immediate term based on, because we're not tracking anything.
So it is as it stands, and there is no report required. Thank you for being available. Moving on, we've kicked that one to death. That's everything on this agenda. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Yeo and Councillor Joyce. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you for coming.